Welcome everyone to today's session, Natural Stress Relief with Energy Tapping, hosted by Suzanne Gundersen. My name is Jennifer Norman. I'm the founder of the Human Beauty Movement, also known as the HBM. The HBM is all about radical self-love, radical self-acceptance, and radical self-expression. We know that beauty is an inside job, and so is wellness, which is why we're delighted to bring you workshops that support your mind, body, soul, well-being. I am honored to introduce you to Suzanne Gundersen, our host. Suzanne is a certified somatic wellness educator. Her expertise is in trauma release solutions that help rewire your body and rewrite your stories so you can experience breakthroughs, decrease symptoms, increase peace, clarity, and choice. So with that, I want to thank everybody for joining us today, and I'm going to turn it over to Suzanne.
Wonderful. All right. Well, let's get right to it. Thanks for that introduction, Jen. So a little bit about me. For about 15 years, I've been working in natural stress management. I'm a speaker, a teacher, a mentor to a lot of different people. But what I actually effectively do is I help people to transform their stress naturally and reconnect with their bodies and their lives. I'll take that a little bit further because I want us all to become our own self-healers. So I have wonderful techniques in my toolbox that I share with my clients, ultimately bringing you more peace, well-being, wisdom. But let's get right to it. One of my top favorite modalities that I've been practicing for over 20 years now is neuro energy tapping. Literally, it is a self-use acupressure technique that calms your mind and relaxes your body. And when the mind is calm and the body's relaxed, you can experience more peace, clarity, and choice. You know, I've come to believe now, if it's not a choice, it's a program. And tapping can help us to rewire and rewrite some of those stories that we have as programs within us. So literally, tapping is we take our two fingers of either hand, it doesn't matter, and we're tapping on energy points. And when we do that, we're sending a calming message to the brain. And there's three parts of the brain I wanna explain. The first is that old reptilian survival brain. It's that brain stem. It's that automatic responses that our body has to stress. So when we're tapping literally on these points, we are calming the body down. And the next layer of the brain is the emotional brain, which is that limbic system where we have an amygdala, which is a gland in our limbic brain that's like kind of an emotional fire alarm. And so when we're tapping, we're literally turning off that emotional fire alarm to say, hey, it's okay to calm down now. And then when we're stressed, often our thinking mind gets really kind of confused and cluttered, and we get brain fog. We don't make good decisions. And so when we're tapping, what we're doing is we're helping to clear that mental confusion and be able to bring that thinking mind back online. There's a brilliant word out there called neuroplasticity. And it really just means that our brain and our body have the ability to adapt and stretch and change. And isn't that amazing, right? So that we don't have a life sentence to our stress any longer, that we really, really can grow and shift and change. I want to make a little footnote here that you may have heard about tapping before. I call it neuro energy tapping. That's kind of my unique method. I mean, all tapping is not created equal. I mean, everybody's got their own approach to it. I have a method I'm going to share with you today called my 3RP method. It's more aligned for stress and trauma transformation. So just keep a footnote on that. But so that's why I call it neuro energy tapping. So a little bit about the history of tapping. It's been around for almost 50 years, believe it or not. It's rooted in Chinese medicine. It uses traditional acupuncture points, except we use our fingertips instead of needles to engage the energy system. So going back a while ago, Roger Callahan first discovered tapping. And he had a brilliant student, Gary Craig. And Gary Craig is the one that coined emotional freedom technique, EFT, and came up with the basic recipe. If you're an EFTer, he came up with the basic recipe. And he was the first to kind of really shorten Roger Callahan's work into something that was really digestible, that we could all be able to effectively use to help us relax and calm down and maybe even get over some bad habits. And there's been other students of tapping, Tapas Fleming, Dr. Larry Nims, Robert Smith, and then most recently, you might know about the brother-sister team of the Ortners, Nick and Jessica Ortner, and their tapping solution. I think actually right now they may be in the middle of, they just began their yearly tapping summit, which they've been doing for over 15 years. So it's been out there for a while. So there are many, many approaches to tapping, but they all use the same energy system. And truly, you know, as we evolve, tapping will continue to evolve as well. So let's talk a little bit about stress. It's this 6-letter word that we toss around. It's this big, big, big word. But what does it really mean? You know, stress is our body's reaction to perception. But I'm going to take that a little bit deeper to say it's our body's reaction to neuroception. And neuroception is a word that was created by Dr. Stephen Porges, who's the author of the polyvagal theory, if you want to geek out with me for a second about that. And really what he's doing is he's defined it as the body being able to detect without your awareness what's going on inside of you, outside of you, relationally between you and others, both conscious and unconscious. See, the word perception kind of infers that we use our mind to interpret stress, when truly the body has a nervous system and the nerves all over our body are constantly aware of what's going on inside, outside, relationally between us, consciously, unconsciously. And that's where neuroception is really, it's the better word to describe what stress is about. So stress is the body's reaction to neuroception, this 24/7 system of nerves of your body constantly sensing information. So our body has this amazing stress response, right? The first layer of our stress response is social engagement. So I'm going to start from the bottom of this chart and work my way up. Our most modern survival strategy as humans is to look to another human, or maybe even another mammal like a dog or a cat, or anything that has an animal with a face, and say, am I safe or am I not safe? That's our first strategy for defense. If we cannot defend threat through social connection, then our body automatically reverts to more ancient strategies like fight, flight, or freeze. There's this little wiggle line you'll see between the kind of social engagement and fight, flight, and that's what I call the window of tolerance. It's where you're running around your house and you're like, oh my gosh, I lost my keys. Oh, I found them. Or you're running around and you go, I can't find my shoes. Oh, I found them. Or, oh, I missed my exit. Oh, I can take the next one. We kind of go up and down with a little bit of stress. But if we have skills to help us regulate, then we can come back to social engagement and stay connected. And when we're in social engagement, we are curious, we are happy, we are content, this is the rest and digest mode of our nervous system, where we're connected. But when we don't have strategies and we are left this social engagement state of stress, and we're living in anxiety, anger, fear, or worse, depression or shutdown, we really need something to help us, come down off of that stress response and return back to social engagement. So I'm going to refer back to this chart often and call social engagement the green zone, because our goal is to kind of go green. We don't want to be living in fight, flight, or freeze. We absolutely need those parts of our nervous system to keep us safe, but we don't want to live there. We want to be able to process and resolve what's going on in those states and come back to connection and social engagement, the green zone. So have you got stress? I mean, who doesn't these days, right? We wake up to global awareness. We live overstimulated lives, and the stress response in our body is turned on. We're like living in a low-grade chronic stress. And either we're coping, we're having trauma symptoms, or we've got maybe some pain or disease. So back to tapping. The foundations of tapping. There's 3 foundations of tapping, and this is what brought me to create my own method about tapping. The first foundation of tapping is rooted in Chinese medicine, because our bodies are energy And we've got rivers of energy that run from our head to our feet called meridians. And there's a momentum to the rivers of energy. And the second foundation of tapping is modern psychology. It's how we think and we learn and we communicate. And it's how we are constantly sending messages between the body and the brain based on how we are communicating to ourselves. And the third foundation of tapping is in neuroscience, which really just means that, our body has lots of pathways of how it operates for survival, for health and well-being. And so when we are tapping, literally what we're doing is something I call the 3 M's of tapping. First is momentum, because remember, the first foundation of tapping is rooted in Chinese medicine. So we've got this energy body and there's a momentum to the energy body. So when we're tapping, we're regulating the momentum of our energy body to go at a pace that personally works for you. Now, not everybody's pace is 100 miles an hour. Not everybody's pace is 25 miles an hour. You got to find your pace. So tapping helps us to, if you're kind of like just putting along and not going too fast and you want to kind of rev up a little bit, or if you're going too fast and you need to slow down, tapping helps to regulate the momentum of your energy body to a pace that personally works for you. The second M of tapping is meaning. Again, rooted in the second foundation of tapping is rooted in modern psychology. So I say the word dog right now, right? Now you all have a dog on your mind, but how come we're not thinking about the same dog? Don't you know that your dog is a white Labradoodle? No, it's not. Your dog is your dog. So we're only ever speaking to ourselves based on our own internal references. And those references are pictures and sounds and sensations and movies and slideshows. So when we're tapping, we are we're detaching ourselves from that specific meaning that we've given that thing that's stressing us out. That way we can start to wiggle free from that and have a more of a perspective about it. And the third M of tapping is memory. And I don't mean memories. I mean that our body has a nervous system and there are pathways and patterns and routes and cycles and routines that it has memorized for us. So, when you get in the car to go to the grocery store, do you plug into the GPS like, hey, take me to the grocery store? No, you just know how to get there. You just get in there and go. It's the same thing with your body. Your body has memorized patterns of how it knows how to do things for you. However, sometimes when we have patterns that are living in fight, flight, or freeze, we want to be able to relax some of those pathways so that we can start to be more curious about new pathways. So the 3 M's of tapping, we're always helping our body regulate the momentum of our energy body. We're helping to detach from that specific meaning. Oh, it was a Tuesday, it was blue, it was 4 o'clock, all the details that we contribute to the meaning of our stress. We start to wiggle free from them and have a broader perspective. And then the third M is memory, which means that all those stress pathways that we have, we can start to reroute to more peaceful, pathways. So before we get started, I want us to kind of get into our body a little bit. So, as Jennifer mentioned, I'm a somatic wellness practitioner, and I love working with the body. I mean, if you're working with trauma or stress, you're working with the body, right? So just sitting in your seat or wherever you're at, I want you to do a couple of hip circles, just kind of hip circles. If you're standing up, even better, but just do some hip circles and then go the opposite direction, right? And then maybe just shimmy your hips from side to side. We hear this word grounding a lot, right? But what does it really mean to get grounded? It means to sense weight, sense connection through weight. So the best way to do that in the body is through the hips and the feet. So a really great thing to do when you're stressed is just kind of move your hips around, no matter where you're at, that'd be fantastic. Another one is I want to get into a little bit of energy exercises. I'm a big fan of Donna Eden's energy method. So the first thing we're going to do is a double karate chop. So I want you to take the side of the hand against the side of the hand and just kind of tap them against each other and then make an X with them. So pinky to pinky. And I want you just to tap the sides of your hands together This is going to get your energy system crossing, right? And then shake those hands out, wiggle your shoulders, and exhale. Bonus points for the audible exhale. Then you're going to take all your fingers, get a nice bounce on your cheekbones. You're going to follow your breath into your lungs. Just like if you were drinking a cool glass of water, you could feel the water going into your throat. And then all your fingers in your collarbones, just breathing easy, noticing your breath. Make a fist with one hand, pound your thymus, which is in the middle of your chest. Fist with two hands under your arms. And then just shake and wiggle everything out. And exhale. Great. Then if you have shoes on or not, just if these are my toes, just kind of squeeze your toes onto the floor. Squeeze your toes into the floor. And then wiggle your toes free and just bounce your legs a little bit. Just bounce them up and down. Now I want you to squeeze your leg muscles. Squeeze all your leg muscles. Kind of like squeeze your glute muscles, squeeze your leg muscles, and release them. Just hold it for 1 second, squeeze and release them. And then wiggle that out a little bit. Remember to exhale. Then you're going to shrug your shoulders up to your ears. You're going to straighten your arms down by your sides. You're going to make fists with your hands. And then you're going to shake and wiggle all that free. Now I want you to put it all together. Squeeze your toes. Tighten your leg muscles. Shrug your shoulders. Straighten your arms. Make fists with your hands. Squeeze, 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 squeeze everything. Hold it, hold it, hold it. You might even notice some trembling. And then just shake and wiggle that free. You may notice yourself sighing, yawning, feeling a little bit more relaxed in your body. These are all great signs that the body is shifting from states of threat and moving into the green zone. Okay, back to tapping. The tapping points. Now, remember, our body is energy. We are energy, in fact, right? We've got these rivers of energy called meridians that run from our head to our feet. And there are hundreds of energy points all over the body. And again, if you went to an acupuncturist, they would put needles in some of these energy points for the purpose of circulating the energy body. Now, all these points are interconnected. Think of it as a figure 8 pattern, right? This energy wants to flow in a nice figure 8 pattern. Now, if you've heard of tapping before, you're going to be like, hey, you're not using all the points that I know how to use. These are the ones that I like to use, and I'll explain why. So we're going to practice together. You're going to take 2 fingers, either hand, it doesn't matter. You can use one side, both sides. Don't get fancy on me today. Just for purposes of practicing, you're going to take your 2 fingers and start tapping between your eyebrows. Now you want to tap about 5 to 10 times per point. And I want you to hear a padding sound. I want you to engage that meridian enough where you're actually hearing a padding sound. And then take those same 2 fingers on the side of the eye. Again, you can do both sides. You can switch sides, doesn't matter. And then you're going to tap on your cheekbone, under your eye, hearing that padding sound. And you can take all 4 fingers or both hands and just get a nice bounce on your collarbones, or just one hand on both collarbones. And then take one hand and squeeze the opposite wrist a few times. So that's technically the points that we're going to be using. And you might say, hey, Suzanne, you missed like so many points. You're supposed to use this point and this point. Look, they're all, you know more, use more. Go for it. You just can't mess this up because all the points are interconnected. So I'm going to go through what the points mean. So tapping again on the eyebrow point. This is the bladder meridian, and it represents emotional trauma. And tap on the side of the eye. This is the gallbladder meridian. It represents anger. On the top of your cheekbone is the stomach meridian. It represents anxiety. Nice bounce on your collarbones. This is the kidney meridian. It represents fear. And when you squeeze your opposite wrist with your hands, you're getting all the meridians that run on the top of your arm and under your arm and end out on your fingertips. You might say, hey, Suzanne, what about the side point over here? Well, when you're squeezing your whole wrist around a few times, you get all the points that go out to the fingers. So you're covered. So now we're going to get into the process of tapping. And the first step is I want us to anchor a good feeling, because tapping helps us to calm the body, calm the emotions, open the thinking mind, right? So we are going into a stressed situation. So I want us to have something that we can land back on safely. So what's your favorite memory? Find your favorite memory. If you're like, I can't think of something today that's my favorite, well, maybe look at some of the pictures I have on the slide and choose something that looks pleasant to you and say, oh, that's a nice feather falling. I can feel some peace with that. Or maybe I can just hear the silence of a pin drop, and that's just so nice and relaxing to me. Or maybe I just see a cloud floating in the sky. Or maybe I can just, feel the letting go of a bunch of helium balloons into the air, or whatever it is that you have. So I invite you to find something that feels good to you. And when you know this favorite memory, this good feeling, I want you to ask yourself, how do I know this is a good feeling? And when you answer the question, are you seeing a movie in your mind? Are you seeing pictures? Are you hearing voices, noises? Are you feeling sensations? What are you feeling? So how do you know this is a good feeling memory? Aim at the best part of it. Like, oh, that is the bestest part. Oh, I like that part the most. Make it a 10 on a scale of 0 to 10. If 0 is not that great, 10 is like, it's amazing. Try and make it a 10. And then give it a name. Give it a little movie title. Maybe you call it Ease and Flow, or maybe it's like whatever little movie title you can come up with, just like two words or something. And while you're there, if you could find something that just feels so wonderful and you have it at least as an intensity level of an 8 or higher, it's just so fantastic. You're going to just take your wrist and squeeze it a couple of times and just say that word, or just say peace, 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 or ease and flow, or something like that. Just something wonderful. Okay. Put a pin in that. Hold on to that best feeling. We're going to use that. And by the way, I highly recommend that you keep a happy journal or have some kind of a happy jar where, happy moments can be very fleeting for us because positive energy moves so fast. So, it's really important that we hold on to the good things that happen to us in life, because we can be really mired down in some of the bad things sometimes. So if you have this happy memory, maybe write it down and hold on to it and consider creating a happy journal or a happy jar where you can hold on to these things. Okay, so 4 easy steps to tapping. Here we go. Step number 1, notice something that bothers you. So right now, I invite you to find something that bothers you and notice how it bothers you. Do you see it as a movie, a picture? Do you hear sounds, voices, noises? Do you feel it as a sensation? How do you know this thing bothers you? That's step number 1. Step number 2 is give that experience that you're having an intensity number on a scale of 0 to 10. If 0 means that doesn't bother me, and 10 means it really bothers me, what number would you give it? And feel free to pop that number into the chat. Tell us what your intensity number is on that stress that you have right now. And try and go to the part that stands out the most. Maybe you're like, oh, it's that thing that they said, it's that facial expression, or it's, oh, I just felt like a punch in the gut, or gosh, I just feel this other way. Just notice the intensity of it. And then step number 3, go to the part that stands out the most, the part that's the most likely uncomfortable. And while you're there, at least a 6 or higher, meaning the 10 is the worst. 6, at least a 6 or higher. If you're there with a 6 or higher, take your 2 fingers, tap between your eyes, and repeat out loud after me. And say, this thing that bothers me, it really, really, really bothers me. And then tap on the side of the eye. It bothers me. I know what it looks like, sounds like, feels like. Everyone that's involved, what they said, what they did, what they didn't say, what they didn't do. And then tap under your eye. This thing that bothers me, it really, really bothers me. And then tap on your collarbone. This thing that bothers me, I'm willing to let it go from every cell of my body. It's safe to let it go because I deserve peace. And then grab your wrist, squeeze it around a few times, take a nice breath, blow it out, say the word clear. And then go to your happy memory right now. Go visit that wonderful, happy, easy memory that we just were thinking about. The feather floating, the sky of clouds floating by, calm, peaceful water, something wonderful. And then just grab your wrist while you're there a few times and just say your phrase, or just say peace, 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 and exhale. And then go back to the thing that was bothering you. Go back to the thing that was bothering you. And notice, what's the intensity number now? Has it changed? Or maybe now you have more information and you go, oh, this is the thing that really bothered me about that. I didn't realize that before, but now I really get it. Like this is the part that's the worst. So here's the process that we just followed, right? Step number one is we noticed the stress that we had. We asked ourselves, how do we know? We gave it an intensity number. We focused on the worst part. And then we tapped. And we said, let it go. Let it go. This thing that bothers me, just let it go. Clear. And then we alternate that going to our best feeling. And now we're at the number 3, what's left? So if you've gone back to the stress and it's like, well, it was a 6 and now it's a 4, or it was a 10 and now it's an 8. Well, some things must be shifting. What's shifting? The momentum, meaning, and memory are starting to shift. And that's what you want. You want that energy to flow. You want that energy to be moving in your body. So if you have anything that's higher than a 2 that's left, then let's do a little bit more tapping. Take your 2 fingers again, tap between your eyes. Repeat out loud after me and say, it's still there. It hasn't gone away. It still bothers me. And then tap on the side of the eye. Still bothers me. I still know it. And then tap under the eye. But in this moment, I'm willing to let a little bit more of it go because I deserve peace. And then tap on your collarbones. Don't make me let it go. What will happen if I let it go? But still, I'm willing in this moment to let a little bit more of it go. And then take your hands, squeeze your wrist a few times, take a nice breath, blow it out, stay clear, and then go back to your happy memory and go feel really, really great. Just be in that nice, peaceful, amazing place. And while you're there, just squeeze your wrist and just say peace, 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 or whatever your happy word is. Now, we might have to go back and forth between, the stress and feeling the best a couple of times as we continue to loosen and wiggle up, and move the momentum, meaning, and memory. So if you've got a 0 and you're like, oh, it doesn't bother me anymore, so it's all gone, then great. Then you can tap in, maybe some new wisdom that you have come to understand about what was going on. That's where the clarity and choice comes in, when you're liberated from your stress. But if you still have some more to go, then you just keep going back and forth between step 2 and step 3. You just keep going back and forth, right? Letting it go, and whatever's left, letting it go, because there's something called resistance, and we can have resistance to letting things go. Now, your experience of tapping, if you have been shifting and your numbers of intensity have been going down, maybe you feel a little tingly sensation. Maybe you took a spontaneous breath. Maybe you yawned or sighed or swallowed, or maybe you're just feeling a little bit more relaxed in your body, right? And those are all great signs that your body is shifting from states of stress and moving into the green zone, states of safe connection. So if anybody wants to pop anything into the chat about their experience about that or questions about that, feel free. Or if they want to share what their intensity numbers started with and where they're at now. Feel free to pop this in the chat. So this is my 3RP method. So 3RP, what does that stand for? Well, resolve, release, reframe, project. Those are 3 R's and a P. That's how fancy I got when I came up with this. So what are we doing when the first layer of tapping, when we're letting it go, is we're resolving. What are we doing? What are we resolving? We're resolving how we know our stress, what it looks like, sounds like, feels like, the momentum of it, the memory of the nervous system's pathways. We're resolving how we know that stress. And then the next layer of tapping is we're releasing. We're releasing what? Our resistance to, oh, it's not safe to change this. It's not possible to change this. I don't deserve to change this, do this differently. So that next layer of kind of like, the first layer is kind of like the low-hanging fruit. The next layer is a little bit more stuck on the tree. So we really sometimes have to kind of spend a couple rounds releasing any resistance that we have to that. And you'll see at the bottom of this slide, I've got an arrow that goes back and forth because you might have to be resolving and releasing a few times, right? Someone asked where tapping originally comes from. So we started with Roger Callahan back in the 70s. He uncovered tapping originally. And his initial protocols were like an encyclopedia. He used to have, if you had a headache, you could tap on these 25 points. If you had a broken finger, you could tap on these 35 points. And it was his student, Gary Craig, that shortened that into emotional freedom technique, which just has the basic recipe of just a few more points than I use. And then I've evolved it to just some of these few points now. So resolve and release, we're going back and forth until we can wiggle free, be liberated from our stress, and then we can reframe and then maybe even project it. I'm going to tell you 2 stories of clients I've worked with that I've had that are really just fun stories to tell. One was I had a man who came to me for anger issues, and he used to drive down a road that had lots of street lights, and he always would get red lights, and he would get so angry at the red light that he had to stop. He was an inconvenience to him, it wasted his time. He just got so frustrated, he took it personal. And so we began tapping on all of these, his experience of his momentum of the red light, the meaning that he gave to the red light, and how his body just knew how to react, when it was at the red light. And we're tapping and tapping until, maybe for 15 minutes. And he finally just said to me, hey, you know what? The red lights all turn green. And I said, oh, they do? And I said, yeah, they all turn green. I said, so really, you can't tell me that you only ever get red lights, because a red light never stays red. It always turns green. But he had no perspective about that at all when he was just enraged with anger about these red lights. And then it was kind of a joke because he would get all green lights because now he was liberated from having that reaction to the red light, that there was no longer any resistance to that. So yes, those red lights eventually turn green, and no, you don't always get red lights and get stuck there because they all turn green, right? So it was just a liberated moment for him from that anger. I had another client who also was a cancer survivor, breast cancer survivor, and she started to see hospice signs all over. And she thought that word was a death sentence. So she called me and she said, I am terrified. I'm going to start feeling something, lumps, something. I'm terrified. I'm terrified of the word hospice. We started tapping on this word hospice. And then somehow in the tapping, we kind of transposed the word, and the word, the term spicy hoe came out of this hospice word. And she just laughed out loud and was like, this is hysterical. Like, no longer can I ever be threatened by the word hospice anymore, because she felt it differently. She heard it differently. It just didn't have the meaning and the charge behind it anymore. So those are some of the kind of amazing things that you can do with tapping, as well as it's great at breaking bad habits, overcoming your own fears, building confidence, grief and loss. It's brilliant. It helps you. Grief, is someone asked about grief. Grief is not a date on the calendar. We don't just say, well, we're going to grieve today. Grief kind of can become the calendar. when you just don't know when it's going to come up. And grief, we all have we have a backlog of grief, especially as women, we have a backlog of grief. And so tapping helps us to process and keep things moving. That way we don't get stuck and stagnant in any emotion, especially grief, which can be really heavy. So tapping is brilliant in the grief and loss process. It helps with all different kinds of stress: family stress, relationship stress, work stress, financial stress, health stress. It's only ever ask yourself, how do I know this stress? And you'll go right to the momentum, meaning, and memory. And that's what you're wiggling free from and liberating yourself. Just like all red lights turn green, just like hospice isn't a death sentence, it's a spicy hell. So find your liberated point, right? So how can you use tapping? Certainly in the moment of your triggers, anytime, any place, it will calm that internal chaos on demand, right? And help you start to feel more peaceful. So truly, when you're in a state of stress and you add a little tapping, just let it go, let it go, let it go. That's all you have to say. Don't worry about anything fancy. When you're stressed, when you're tapping while you're stressed, it starts to harmonize your brain and your body and your mind to be more peaceful. So a couple of tapping tips. You need to be willing and persistent, right? Your deepest stresses did not develop overnight. And so you need to just be willing and persistent with yourself. Repetition certainly anchors change. And another great tip is aim at the part that's the most uncomfortable, the most familiar. Sometimes we have to press on the pain just a little bit to get close to the root of what is holding this all together. And then also people say, hey, why are you tapping on the negative? I don't want to bring that into my life. I don't want to put that out there in the universe. It's like, oh no, your body's already doing that. You don't deny what's already going on, right? What resists persists. What we don't want is the strongest force in the universe, because we know what it looks like, sounds like, feels like, as opposed to what we do want. So we're a little fuzzy on that sometimes. So this is why tapping on the negative is so important. If you're driving a car, and it had a full tank of gas, you would not go to the gas station. You just wouldn't. You have to empty out the gas. So even if you're driving around with bad gas, you have to empty out that gas before you can go refill your gas tank with good gas. And this is why we have to process and resolve the negative and then we can bring in the positive. I mean, if positive affirmations work, geez, we'd all have exactly the life that we want, right? Why don't they work? Because we're so full of the negative stuff. So we've got to process and resolve that. Make tapping a daily habit. Wake up, start tapping middle of the day, kind of set some alarms, maybe lunchtime, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, just, hey, whatever's going on, I let it go. Whatever's going on today, I let it go. Whatever's going on today, I just let it go, because stress will just accumulate on us all day long. Now, how long to tap? You want to tap at least 5 to 10 times per point. Hear that padding sound, right? Until you start to experience a little bit of a shift when those intensity numbers change from an 8 to a 4 to a 2 to a 0. And also your words. There's a lot of tapping's become more popular. There's a lot of people who have tapping videos where they say, just tap along with me. But truly, that's kind of swimming upstream with like a spoon, because your words are your wand, right? If you know Florence Scovel Shinn's work, your words are your wand. So your words are how you know your stress. It's how you define it. It's your dog. Remember, I said the word dog, you have a dog on your mind. We're not talking about the same dog. How you describe your stress is unique to you. It's the words that you use. It's the feelings that you have. It's the voices and noises that you've recorded. It's the pictures and the slideshows and the movies that you have in your mind. So really using your own words and how you know is the secret sauce to making tapping effective for you. Now, is it working or not? Well, you'll notice a little tingly sensation maybe, or the yawning, sighing. Maybe you took a nice breath, you're feeling more relaxed in the body. Great. Those are all signals that you're leaving states of stress, moving into the green zone. And also remember that not all tapping is the same, right? There are different people that have different approaches, and watch out for those tapping scripts, because they might open up other things that have nothing to do with what's going on with you, because they're going to use their words. They're going to use the belief system of that person when you want to use your own, right? And ultimately, if you're needing, even the best surgeons in the world can't operate on themselves. So, if you want to work with a certified tapping professional, probably would give you the better results a little bit faster and help keep you on track. So those are some great tips. Tapping meditations, remember, very simply, the tapping points. All you have to do when you're stressed is just tap on these points, let it go, let it go. It starts to resolve the stress response, right? Leaving us from fight, flight, freeze back to green. It also supports quality meditation, which is really popular these days to kind of calm the monkey mind and that restless body that we might be experiencing. It also starts to neutralize some of those subconscious tail enders where you're just like, I love and accept myself. I'm at peace with myself. I love the world. It's nice to say those positive things, but your subconscious mind is going to fill in a little bit of a tail ender to that. Like, oh, not today. I didn't do that today. Or no, you don't. So what you're really affirming is what the subconscious believes about what you're saying, not the positive affirmation. So when you're tapping, it starts to neutralize some of the subconscious tail enders. Also, tapping helps us to transform our stress and trauma and build resilience. Resilience is a real popular word these days. It really just means your bounce back ability. When we get kicked sideways with something that really affects us, how long does it take you to come back and get back on the road again? That's resilience, is having that bounce back ability. So tapping helps us to build resilience. So truly try and make tapping a daily habit. That would be fantastic.
So Suzanne, as you were going through the tapping process between the eyes and then on the sides of the eyes and then underneath, you were saying this thing that really bothers me. So people should fill that in with whatever is really bothering them and really talk to themselves rather than just saying that generic script. Is that right?
Yes, you can either just say this thing that bothers me, or you can say this thing that was a Tuesday, it was blue, it was 6 o'clock. Yes, get more descriptive. The more specific you can get about it, the better, certainly. Yeah. Remember, your word is your wand. So the more detail that you have about what you're stressed about, you're getting to the root of it. But your energy body doesn't speak English. It doesn't speak, Spanish, French, German, anything. It just speaks vibration. So you really don't have to say anything. Your job is to aim internally about what it looks like, sounds like, and feels like. So you don't have to say anything if you don't want to while you're tapping. But if you want to, you can get descriptive.
And Sherry just direct messaged me. I think that she meant this for you. Is this evidence-based to work?
Yes, actually, Dr. Peta Stapleton, she has done a lot of studies in the last 10 years or so about, she's done it off of EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique. So yes, there is. You can look her up and find her work and what she's done. And it's P-E-T-A is her name, Peta Stapleton. That'd be great. Which body parts do the points on the face match? Sure, we can go over that again. So between the eyes is the bladder meridian, right? And the side of the eye is the gallbladder. Under the eye is the stomach. On your collarbones is your kidneys. And when you grab your whole wrist, you get all those other meridians. The thumb is is the lung. It represents grief. The index finger is the large intestine. It represents stubbornness. The middle finger is the pericardium, which is the sac around the heart, represents jealousy. You skip the ring finger, go to the pinky. On the side of the pinky is the heart meridian. It represents shock. And the side of the hand is the small intestine, and that represents fear of a new experience. So instead of tapping on just here or each of the individual finger points, we just grab the whole wrist and we get all of it.
I think a key to tapping, which I think has already, as you were mentioning, all the meridians is based in like ancient Chinese, it's traditional Chinese medicine and acupuncture and acupressure. And so this is not something that was necessarily just invented in the 70s. This is something that is using science and true physiology that has been proven over centuries, over maybe even
Oh, yeah, this is 5,000 years old. Absolutely.
5,000 years. And so it's utilizing that kind of energy to move it around your body and release it, which is the wonderful thing. It's like getting that chi to flow properly, but using the power of your own touch. Because when grief or stress or these feelings of, maybe it's a lack of self-confidence or self-esteem, all of these like negative energies get trapped inside the cells of your body. And the way that they get trapped in your body is in these different areas, as Suzanne has just described. And so being able to percuss them, or being able to like move around that energy and release it through the dialogue that you're telling yourself, making that meaning and reassociating it with the reframing, really does help. It may not seem like it at first, and that's why the repetition is important. The practice is important. Keep doing it, because over time, all of a sudden you'll realize, I feel better. And it'll all of a sudden just dawn on you, wow, I'm not grieving anymore. Wow, I actually am not as stressed now. And you kind of wonder why, but it's because you're releasing it subtly and surely. You're releasing it.
Yes. I'll tell a brief story, and just so you know, why did I get into this work was because I was my first client. I grew up in a very dysfunctional, abusive household. I had a chronic anxiety disorder by the time I was 12 years old, promptly put on medication. I was on medication until my early 30s, just didn't want to live that way any longer. I was an emotional overeater. I was hundreds of pounds heavier than I am now. And when I found tapping, this goes back to like the late 90s when I found tapping, and someone said, oh, if you just tap under your eye, it'll help calm your anxiety. And I was like, that's crazy. But I did it. I didn't even know what I was doing. I was tapping on these points. And the next thing I knew, my ice cream addiction was gone. And I was able to go through car washes and on airplanes because I had such bad claustrophobia. And all these symptoms of my life of chronic stress and anxiety were just melting away because I was just tapping on these energy points. And that's what just got me so passionate about it, because I thought, oh my gosh, if I can overcome these things, which I never thought I could ever do, man, everyone needs to know about this. And so I just kind of, in my natural way of teaching, I just went for it. So, and here we are. So yeah, there's so many things that tapping can help you process and resolve. We keep things dormant inside of us, physically, emotionally, mentally. It's time that we start to open them up and process them. And tapping is a brilliant tool to be able to do to help you process what's going on in the moment. That way you can come to the other side of it. And certainly there's things in our life that are big things. And it's almost like you're saying, hey, I have to run a marathon, but I don't even own sneakers. Where do I start? Got to start. Got to be willing and persistent. If tapping is a tool that resonates with you, great, awesome. Use it, practice it, do it. Get with a practitioner, do it. If it's not, then find what does, because there's a lot of things out there. But we're really living in times where you don't have a choice. You can't wing it anymore. Your coping strategy just isn't enough. You're going to need tools and skills, and tapping is fantastic because it's self-use, it's free. You don't have to buy anything. You can do it on your own, but really make it your own. Don't follow along with what people are talking about in their tapping scripts or their videos. It could be a little bit send you backward or not give you the progress that you're hoping for. And then that's how a lot of people say, oh, well, it doesn't work for me. Yeah, traditional EFT doesn't work for me anymore. It doesn't work for a lot of people anymore. That's why I developed the method that I use.
Great. Thank you so much, Suzanne. I want to thank everybody for joining us. Thank you, Suzanne, for these amazing tips and teaching us about tapping, the history, and some practical ways that we can help to manage our stress naturally. If you liked this session, everybody, please let everybody know. Let them know that the Human Beauty Movement is putting on these mind, body, soul wellness sessions for your well-being. Definitely follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. You can find us at the Human Beauty Movement. That's our handle. And do check out all of our upcoming events. As we mentioned, Suzanne is coming back every month to provide this particular session. So if you want to share it with some friends or your family members, let them know that they can go to this website. Please feel free to join us again in the future. I wish everybody a wonderful day and the rest of your week. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.